What is up, all of my beautiful freaking people? Welcome back to another episode of FML Talk. Today is part 2 of Carlie Craig's incredible sit-down interview. You guys, it is a fucking doozy. So sit back, choose, grab a cocktail, grab the tissues, grab your journals, grab something, and hold the fuck on. Welcome to FML Talk.
Oh my God. Wait, how old was the other girl?
19. Can you believe that shit?
Hey, this is Gabrielle Stone.
Good book?
I did not check your sickness. He did what? 48 hours?
What a dick.
Yeah, but have you seen all the photos on her Instagram?
And this is FML Talk.
Oh, no, she didn't.
Y'all know I love a good self-love cocktail and occasionally an actual cocktail. I have always notoriously hated the taste of alcohol and needed it disguised in a good mixology cocktail until I discovered NEFF. Because NEFF is a premium vodka in its purest form with non-GMO rye, it has a light taste full of character. Not only is NEFF one of the best tasting vodkas I've ever had, it also comes in the cutest packaging I have ever seen. Their unbreakable barrel keeps it chilled for up to 6 hours, making it the perfect drink to take just about anywhere. Join me in adding a little actual cocktail into your self-love cocktail with NEFF Vodka. Cheers! Okay, everybody, before we jump in to part 2 of Carlie's incredible interview, I want to remind you that there is a couple trigger warnings for this episode. We continue to talk about mental health and PTSD, narcissistic abuse, mental abuse, and in this episode specifically, there is some suicidal ideation. So I want to make everyone aware that we're going through some fucking minefields on this one, but I promise you it is worth it and it is so empowering, and this story has a happy fucking ending. But before we get to that happy ending, we're going to go through some shit. So strap in and let's get to it.
What do I do?
Yeah.
What do I do?
And this is a brand new place that you guys had just moved into and signed a lease for. You had just painted all the offices.
Designed it, painted every single room to perfection. This was our starter home, which means that they had a thing going on and she had already gotten pregnant the first time when we went and we moved to the condo. So that's why you were having all these emotional outbursts, and that's why you were making me feel bad about all the things you're making me feel bad about. I just couldn't believe this had happened. And I was like, I don't even know what I'm going to do. Do I stay in my apartment that I just worked so hard to make perfect? I can't afford this place on my own, a 4-bedroom place by myself. I don't really know what to do.
And all those memories that are now there.
Totally.
And tarnished.
And so now I'm the next couple of days were just so the next morning he comes over and I couldn't sleep, and I got a list together, and I was like, well, I'm leaving you, so here are all the things that we need to tie up. Mm-hmm. And I went down the list, and he's like, well, if you would ever consider staying. And I'm like, you lost me. This is disturbing behavior. And I said, I am horrified. I haven't even begun to dig into what this actually is. And I am just horrified at your behavior. And I am walking away from this situation. I'm not here to help you deal with a alleged pregnancy. This has nothing to do with me. This is all your situation to deal with. I'm done. I'm out of here. I was so understanding about checking on this person who had all these mental health issues, but you were fucking her the whole time.
Yeah.
Looking me dead in the eye saying, are you sure it's okay I go over there? And just scaring me to the point of not being able to stand up for myself anymore.
So over the next couple of days, you guys spent some time together, and he allowed you, I don't think that's the right word, but let you ask anything you wanted to ask. And he was pretty forthcoming with some gnarly details about everything.
Correct. He revealed to me that he also cheated with her in 2018 when he had went and gotten lunch with her. that he said he was going to Orange County, but then he padded the time and actually went to her house and did a bunch of drugs and had sex with her, and that I was never going to find out about it. And he's like, and I got away with it. And then he went as far as to say, and in 2019, I was really good. I didn't talk to her really. And, you know, things had been cut off for a while.
Oh, good boy. Pat on the back for that
I'm
one,
like,
bro.
okay, cool. Gold star, tight, cool, tight. And then I'm like, okay. And I'm like, well, then what was the decision that you made to go over there? And he's like, I don't even remember. But that meant that I go, well, when did you get her pregnant the first time? And he had sex with her. And then we went on a road trip to spend time with my family in Texas. So that means during that whole road trip, you knew that you had sex with somebody. And then he found out that she was pregnant when we got back from Texas, which we had driven all the way to Texas in my car with the dogs, taking pictures at the Grand Canyon, going to the winery, doing all these romantic, like cute little things. And sorry, I'm just like, every time I think about that road trip, I just get like so tight in my body, because we were listening to like Brene Brown, like audiobooks about shame. And like, and I'm sitting here and I'm like, what the heck could have been going on in your brain during that time? So I decided I'm going to go home to Florida. I'm like, I'm going to leave. So like, I'm just going to need to pack all my shit, put it in storage. And I just need to bail on LA for a while. Luckily, I was working on the Hills at the time as a post coordinator. And I talked to my boss and he was like, yeah, you can work remote. So thank God, like I was able to work remote during that time. And I was like, all right, F this. I got to get out of town also, because I'm not trying to be caught up in this whole, like, you know, web of whatever the fuck this is.
Yeah,
like,
the shitstorm that he's created for himself.
Totally. And not to mention, like, the rug has been completely pulled out from under me. Where do I go from here? So after I decided we were going to Florida, the next few days were just filled with lots of phone calls to friends and family. And my friends and family were like, you sound really calm.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you have to understand that I was really miserable. And like the fact that this is what is going on, I'm ready to walk away. Like I'm, you know, and not to mention my fight and flight response was just kicked into overdrive, because I was like, I have to leave this. I need to remove myself from this situation and go 3,000 miles away. And so then one of those phone calls was to you guys, and he and I had a discussion, because he was like, I feel like I need to tell Gabs because of her platform and because of, you know, her books and what she's been through. I feel like I've betrayed her as well, because like we've had all of these deep conversations during our little like crazy nights that we would have during quarantine. Yeah. And I feel like I've betrayed her as well. So I feel like I need to tell her in person. And I'm like, all right, well, let's just get this over with. And I was like, I'll call them and tell them to come over. And so then that's when I called you guys.
And when we sat down, my heart was beating like I had like just walked into the principal's office. Like it was a really tense situation. You were in fucking shambles. He was crying, and Tay and I were just like, what the fuck is going on? And he starts to tell us all of this stuff. And I remember so vividly, like when he said, and I've been cheating on Carlie for the past 6 months, my hand like smacked my chest. And then he was like, and she's pregnant. And I audibly, very awkwardly and loudly went, ah! And Tay like put his hand on my arm because it was so awkward. And like the way that it came out, like I couldn't even reenact it if I tried.
No. Yeah. I remember that.
And he sat there and he said to me, I know what you've been through, and I know, you know, what you dealt with your ex-husband. And I'm just in tears, crocodile tears. And I'm just so sorry, because I feel like I've let you down, and you've been such a good friend to me. And like, it was like watching this scared little boy say like, Mom, please don't leave me, because I really fucked up.
Yeah. And I remember you saying, no, you're not my ex-husband. Like,
yeah, I was like, you are not the same as him. You are not. I was so supportive, because the first thing I was met with was you walking out and saying, please just be kind. So I was like, I must not be seeing a full picture somewhere. Like, he must have really dug himself deep, and like, there must be something that I'm not seeing.
Yeah. And I mean, up until that point, it was just victim. He was playing the victim. He, was sobbing in my arms and, talking about his traumatic childhood and all these things and using that as a reason to justify his behavior. And I was at the point, I was so brainwashed at that point that I was like, even telling my mom in the car ride back, I'm like, this isn't a normal cheating situation, because here are the things that they've been through. And this is a way bigger thing. And like, they're truly at rock bottom. And this is like, they are flying back to where they're from to figure out why they did this. Like, this is a really big deal in their life.
Yeah. And I mean, even, like, we set him up with a therapist. Like, he stayed at our house for a couple nights. Like, I was very... like, I'm going to be there for both of these individuals as much as I can. And now looking back on it, I'm like, fuck, dude, everything you said to me was gaslighting me in the realm of the path I've been on. Everything was like, oh,
I'm going on a healing journey.
And like my trauma and this and this. And I remember saying to him, like, I get it. And I'm so proud of you for like starting to finally like recognize and unpack this. But your trauma is not an excuse to fucking ruin someone else's life, which is what he did.
He did. I mean, I had so much invested, like, and we didn't even really touch on this, but I was also treated like an assistant.
Yeah.
Like, I had a list of tasks to do every day, and I therefore put my dreams on the back burner. I cast aside so many of my goals because this was going to be my husband.
Right.
So then I'm sitting there being like, well, I just wasted 4 years of my life. Like, you could have just cut me loose that first week that you got with Sarah while I was auditioning for Glinda.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now, and I, at that point too, thought, okay, well, we're going to end it. We'll be friends. I thought, okay, well, we will be friends, like, at least, this all happened and whatever, but clearly they're a very wounded, lost individual, and I have to have empathy for them because,
yeah,
they've been through so much, and clearly that's why they did this.
And there were times where I would talk to both of you and you were still trying to communicate, and you were like, both of you were steadfast and we're eventually going to be best friends once this all settles and clears. And, both of you felt that way.
Right. And I think I started to come, I went to Florida and I just threw myself into activities to heal. Like, I was like, I'm going to go to the beach. I'm going to spend time with friends. I'm going to play tennis. I'm going to make sure every day I'm either playing tennis, meeting with a personal trainer, or taking a voice lesson, like doing anything just to invest in myself and just
self-love cocktail.
Totally. And I wrote that down, and you gave me your book, and, I was very much in that space, and we didn't really communicate. But all the people in his life were calling me and being like, we are so sorry that they did this to you. We thought that they had changed. Mm-hmm. Which meant that this was a pattern. This is something that they have done to a lot of women. And they had alluded to that they had been abusive to other partners in the past, and that they used to yell at women and call them the C word and all these things. And I was like, but they don't do that to me. So, that's not how I'm treated.
Right.
But then the veil started to pull back when the curtain rather, when I asked if they had cut things off with Sarah, and they hadn't. Mm-hmm. Like 4 months later. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wait a second. So you were telling me that you're on this healing journey and that this is rock bottom and you need to figure this out. And okay, Sarah took care of the pregnancy or whatever, but now you paid her off, and now I'm waiting for my money for my condo. And like, where your like none of it really added up, where I didn't really realize how much of a figure this woman was in his life. Mm-hmm. And that they actually had a full-blown relationship going on.
Yeah.
That was like the big thing where I had even, like we would maybe talk every couple months, and I got on the phone with them around like April, and I said, I didn't realize that you were in a full-blown relationship, and he didn't even deny it.
Right. And you guys were very open on social media. Like she knew that you guys were together.
He knew about me because she was a fan of mine.
Oh, I did not know that.
For being part of the Todrick crew. She came and saw us perform in DC.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah. So it's like this twisted web that I never asked for. Like, but obviously I've gone through a lot of phases of self-blame and shame and all these things, but you know, I should have walked away. I should have whatever. What it boils down to is I didn't trust my gut. Mm-hmm. And I should have at the very jump. Yeah. That I was in a very vulnerable place. I was young. This person, I had idolized them and made them up to be this hero, when in reality, their mood swings and all of these toxic behaviors, I just tolerated them because how badly did I want to end up with my childhood crush?
Right.
Yet here I am, and that person is the one that killed us in the end. Like, this is unbelievable. Yeah. It's like, you really can't write this shit.
Yeah. So eventually you shifted from, well, I guess you came back from Florida. You went for how many months?
4.
And you came back and lived with Tay and I in our unit.
In your guest house.
In our little guest unit.
My fairy cottage.
And so you and I were spending a lot of time together. Like we would hang out in the backyard and have coffee in the morning with the dogs and like, you know, do dinners at night. And the more, you know, I was open with both of you. You guys knew that I was kind of like the middle person. If anyone ever needed something, once you guys stopped communicating, yeah, like I was the go-between. And I was okay with that because I cared about both of you. I did see how he was, at least on the outside, to me, was putting in work and really looking like he was, you know, trying to make changes. And
but you didn't know that they were still seeing Sarah.
Correct. No idea. We were told that had been like overdone with, gone. So when was it during that time that you were living with Tay and I that you went from we're eventually going to be friends one day to this person is not my eventual friend and is not just my ex? Because I know you don't view them that way anymore.
No. We had a conversation where we had a conversation on the phone, which was the last time we spoke, where also, mind you, I had only seen them once in person. It was like I flew out to LA to like handle my storage, and I just kept my like sunglasses on for the most part and just was like la-di-da, like just handling business. And they invited me in the car to talk, and I was just like, no, we're gonna stand outside. Like I made that boundary very clear, and I was like, so when are you cutting things off with Sarah? And they're like, I'm working on it. Like, and I was just like, okay, whatever, you know. It was just a very awkward exchange. And then I flew back to Florida and drove my car and my dogs back out. Mind you, I'm like now living in a little 2x4. Like the cottage was lovely, but it was really small compared to my 4-bedroom condo that I put so much energy into. I have 2 dogs that I'm now responsible for because obviously I wasn't going to leave Otis in that situation. And I had a puppy. I also had a puppy to deal with. And I'm like, this is just so much responsibility. And now I'm also living around the corner from my condo that they still get to live in, that I decorated and all these things. So I was really having a hard time when I first got back. And there was a day where I said, hey, can I get on the phone with you? I need to yell at you for a little bit. And they were willing and open. we got on the phone and I was like, people tell me that they're going to the grocery store and I don't believe them. I am traumatized. And in that conversation, they started minimizing my trauma. And I started to realize that every single conversation we had that spring was always about them and about the discoveries they're making in therapy. They're not asking how I'm doing, what I'm going to do, how I'm going to navigate this, how my brain is healing. They don't care about how I'm doing. It's all about the progress that they're making. Mm-hmm. And that really hurt. And it clicked for me when we were on the phone. And I said, I'm traumatized. People say that they're going to do something. I don't believe them. And he goes, well, that's not going to last forever. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I don't think you understand the severity of what you've done to me. And like, I don't even know where to begin on this journey. Like, I'm just so aware. I have to rebuild my life from scratch. I have invested so much into you, getting you a website, an agent, running your social media, doing everything for you as an assistant, basically. Was that all I was good for? And then they said stuff in the conversation like, you know, people in my life are telling me that I should just give it time and that you'll come back around. And that really did it for me. That was like the nail in the coffin, because that's when it became obvious to me that if he had been telling people the details of what they actually did, then nobody would say that I would come back around.
Yeah.
So that means that you're not telling everybody the full picture, right? And you're not filling people in on what the heck actually happened and how severely you psychologically abused me.
Yeah.
Because you were abusing me not only for those 6 months, but there was a whole boatload of other things that he was doing that I have since recognized as narcissistic abuse that I didn't even realize in that 4-year time period was chipping away at my self-esteem over and over.
Yeah.
And I look back and I read my journals from when I was in Florida and we would have phone conversations. And I literally would write like, I'm so glad that I could be the one to take this on the chin so that their soul can evolve. Mm. And I'm like, what kind of fucked up brainwashing is that?
Well, and it was partly because, you know, I remember having conversations where both of you were each other's twin flame. And we came in to like learn this big fucking lesson and erupt into each other's lives. And the way that he framed everything, and he told Tay and I, as far as I know, everything.
Yeah.
But the way that it was framed was always reverted back to, this is because of this trauma, and this is because of this that I never dealt with, and this is because of this. And it would be covered with like, I'm not excusing it, but this is the reason. And I remember so vividly, you and I were having coffee one day, or maybe wine, I don't know, one of the two. And
one of our vices.
One of the two. And we were in my backyard, and you were because you knew that I was still trying to support him and that Tay and I were still friends with both of you. You were very reserved in the way that you spoke about him. You were never trying to like bash him. It was always like, I hope he's doing the work. I hope he's okay. I hope he's growing. And there was one day where something changed in you. And I think it was once you had realized that like, oh, I've been a victim of narcissistic abuse for years. And I remember you telling me a story about when you guys were on vacation and you had posted a picture, or you were getting ready to post a picture, and you were in a bikini and he had taken it of you and you felt like amazing. And he was like, well, I don't know if you should post that. You know, like you can like kind of see your cellulite and like you don't really look that great in it. And sitting there watching you tell me this story, I was like, this is not what I thought it was. Like, this is not the scenario that I thought we were working through. Like, this goes back way deeper than falling into cheating and being with another person. This goes way deeper than getting someone pregnant twice. Like, this is a fundamental problem in this person's brain that he thinks he can make a woman feel like this. And there were so many examples like that ended up coming out to the point where I was like, this is not someone I can support.
Yeah. So yeah. And up until that point too, like I was protecting them. Like I really was I had such loyalty, and also not to mention, like, my identity was wrapped up in them.
Yeah.
My life became about taking care of them, and it was me and them, and that was who I became. And so I didn't even know where to begin on defining who Carlie was. And so because of that deep rooted loyalty, and even when walking out the door, walking out on them, they're like, okay, if somebody asks you this is what you say. And I'm like, I'm going to say whatever I want to say. I won't throw you under the bus, but like, I was like, I'm not going to go and run and tell this whole ordeal to everybody, but you can't control what I'm going to say. Like, you did this to me, and now I have to navigate how to build my life up again. Yeah. And they even went as far as to say, people are going to tell you that I'm manipulating you. People are going to call all of our twin flame stuff bullshit. People are going to tell you I'm a narcissist, all these things. And but that's, that we're twin flames, and you know what this actually is. And I was like, no, I know. And that was where my head was.
Yeah.
So it's wild to look back on that now, and like just the level of control that they had over me, to the point where I wasn't even sharing like details with you guys until months of living at your place.
Yeah.
And then that was when I started to work on my show, because I was like, all right, well, what do I have left? I need to just do something. I need to do my art, because that's the only thing that I have left that is mine. Like, my condo's gone, my man is gone, all the time I invested in our world is gone.
The future you thought you were going to have.
The future I thought I was going to have, my future kids that I'm now grieving, like all of these things that were so built up in my head. Now I'm like, well, what do I have left? I have my freaking show. Like, that's really all I have.
And you are not okay. Like,
no,
we were very worried about you. Like, that was a rough summer. It was scary to watch. And I would come in from like talking with you, and I would look at Tay, and I'd be like, I'm worried about her.
And every now and then I'd be like, sorry if you can hear me screaming through the wall. I just had another panic attack. And that's another thing too. Like, that's when I started experiencing PTSD symptoms. And I was like, this doesn't feel like a normal breakup.
Yeah.
And that's when I started to really dissect the abuse that I had been enduring for years. And I didn't really want to believe it at first, because again, they were such a Prince Charming in my eyes. Mm-hmm. But then it just, as time passed, like, it became more and more apparent that this person was not who I thought they were, and that they were actually presenting a character to me the whole time. Because even when I would see them talk about Sarah and how they were going to deal with this pregnancy, they get really nasty and really volatile. And I had never seen that side of them before.
Yeah.
And that's who they are.
Right. It was a show for you. Mm-hmm. So when did you make the decision to be like, okay, I'm going to pour all of this into my art, and I'm going to do a one-woman show around it?
Well, I had been doing these one-woman shows, since New York, and they were all, ironically enough, poking fun at my own narcissistic tendencies, right? Because when you're trying to make it in LA or in Hollywood, like, it does feel very narcissistic, because you have to be your own brand and like build yourself up to be this personality, and like, who thinks that they're good enough to win an Oscar or like an Emmy or whatever. But so it was really poking fun at the absurdity of like what it means to try to make it in Hollywood and like my personal journey. So I had all these songs, and it's a musical comedy show. It's all original music. And I was like, I think I need to recontextualize it, because now, like what I'm working through and like the inciting incident, it's always been about my Hollywood journey, but now this is what my Hollywood journey is about. Like that I had to go back to Florida, but LA's not going to kick the shit out of me. I'm coming back and I'm going to still pursue my dreams even after getting cheated on.
Yeah.
And even to say, like, you know how big of a leap it was for me, even to just say in the show that I got cheated on.
Yeah.
Which didn't even scrape the surface of what I actually dealt with. And I hadn't even arrived at the conclusion of the depth of the abuse at that point either. Like, it was such a big deal for me to write a comedy song saying you have a girl that's on the side.
Yeah.
And I was like, but, and you remember, like, days before the show, I'm like, but what if they see it? Like, whatever. And you were like, they never protected you, so why are you protecting them? And it was just this, like, I was still brainwashed.
Yeah. And I remember saying to you, it's like the age old saying, if they didn't want to be written about, they should have behaved better. So whatever happened to you in your life, that belongs to you. You own that. So if you want to work through it in a fucking book, in a musical, in whatever way you choose, that is your right after you have had an experience, especially one that was so awful by someone else.
Right. And that's something that I hadn't even built up that level of strength yet. Like, now I can say with confidence that I'm in a place where I am excited to share my story in an artistic, beautiful way. But at that point in time, I was just doing the show to survive.
Yeah.
I was just doing the show to be like, let me just get back on stage because that's going to make me feel like me again. And I don't even know who me is anymore because I was them. I was in that relationship. That was who I was. Let me do something that makes me feel like I deserve to take up space and that, like, I deserve to be heard for an hour.
Yeah. Like grasping at straws. Like, I just need something to focus my energy on and hold on to.
Totally. And even up until that, like, even leading up to the show, I was a frazzled mess. I was so stressed out. It was so scary for me. But then, like right after the show, you're like, could I post videos? And I'm like, post it all, like I felt so empowered. And even when I was on stage, like I was singing the anal song and which
we're going to get to,
which we'll get to. But I was singing that song and like the lyrics I had originally written, like I started changing them on the fly as I was performing.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And getting more specific in that moment. And because like my body just took over. Like it was originally, the car that I got in 2019. And I'm like, my Toyota that I started leasing in 2019. And I'm like, yeah, get specific, bitch. Like I was I felt so empowered in that moment. And to look out at a room of people and to have them like truly cheering me on.
Yeah.
It was also a way of me to overcome my social anxiety and my shame surrounding the situation because I knew that people around town or in my friend groups or whatever, like they knew that there was an infidelity thing, but they didn't know like
the extent.
Yeah. And I didn't even get into the extent, but more so like they didn't know that I was going to be open about it.
Right.
Like I didn't even know I was going to be open about it until I did the show. And then I was like, okay, well, that's a big leap that I just took. We'll see what happens after that.
Yeah. And the amount of people that responded, I mean, being in the audience of that show was so electric. Besides the fact that like, it was fucking hysterical. Like you're so talented and you're such a good singer. It was just so amazing to watch this like broken girl turn into this like woman that's reclaiming her power. So right now we are going to take a little listen.
Oh man.
To what's the official title of it?
And All the Good Times.
And All the Good Times.
That's AN'Al, the good times.
And you will probably hear me on the track fucking hooting and hollering in the audience. So without further ado, here's Carlie's AN'Al Good Times.
So you have a girl that's on the side, gave you everything, gave you life. Now I have to pack my pride for a 3,000-mile drive. Till you told me so inadequate. Force my hand, force me to quit you. I can't sleep because of my imagination. All I see is you together in my mind. We were so good till it got bad. Now I've got these emails stacked up in my drafts, and they say, email 1, did she let you do anal? Email 2, did she let you do anal? Email 3, you know that I didn't prefer it, I saved it for a special occasion. Email 4, how's your grandmama doing? Email 5, but did your side chick let you stick it with the sun don't shine?
Oh my God, it's like literally, when I say I've told people about this song, when I say I get it stuck in my head and I'll like randomly be doing the dishes and Tay's like, what are you singing? And I'm like, anal.
Also, you were the first one to ever hear that song in the backyard.
Yeah, dude. And I remember you singing me like the fucking hook and the lyric. And I was like, I'm dead. Dude, this is brilliant. You should make a whole fucking album. Like, women are going to attach onto this shit that have been cheated on and been through it. Like, nobody's business.
Man, and then I filmed, the show, and then the video started picking up on TikTok, and I was like, oh my God, there's an audience for this. Like, this is...
Yeah, dude, there's a huge audience.
Yeah,
for it.
I mean, and even posting that online as well, so scary, because all of their friends and family follow me still.
Yeah.
That was another thing that like really started to kind of open my eyes over now, like the past several months, is like people that they used to work with, the wives of his friends, like people are supporting me. Like everybody, it's like almost like it was this secret that he was actually a womanizing abuser, and I had no clue.
Like nobody just bothered to tell you.
Nobody bothered to tell me. And it was like, again, there was another red flag that I didn't even mention, but he said like when all the Me Too stuff was happening, he had said like, sometimes I just worry that people from my past might like come out and say something about me. And I didn't know what that meant.
That means you've done some fucked up shit in the past.
Right. But it was like, oh, but you're not like that anymore. And like, what you ever did to people couldn't have been that bad. But like, now that I know what I experienced, and after dealing with my PTSD and the panic attacks and the night terrors and everything, the damage that they did, I mean, these pieces I've had to pick up, this is something I never could have prepared for.
So after you did this LA show, which I will vouch for was fucking mild compared to what it could have been.
Yeah, it was very, I tiptoed a lot.
Yeah. For context, it would have been like reading the first 2 chapters of E per FML and then being like, and then, some stuff happened. Like it was very mild.
I think I made it a point that only like the first 10 minutes or 15 minutes of the show were going to be about the breakup, and then everything else was going to be about me coming back to LA, me in Hollywood, and like recontextualizing my old music. Yeah.
But obviously like he saw it. I mean, it was all over my social media. I was fucking like going hard. And this was when I was still supporting both of you. And I had started to realize by watching you deteriorate in front of my eyes and hearing the things that you were coming forward with once you felt comfortable, that this wasn't someone I was going to be able to support. So I had set up a coffee date with him, and I was fucking nervous. And this was actually after, I'm sorry, I'm going to put this on blast, but this was actually after he had met Tay for lunch. I don't remember like what they were meeting for, but Tay was kind of in the same camp as I was at this point. We were just like, what do we do? Because this isn't okay. And they went and had lunch, and he sat down and he was like, I'm a little upset that neither of you told me or gave me a heads up that she was going to do this show. I would have expected you to give me a little bit of warning. And Tay and him, you know, went back and forth for a little bit, and he's like started playing the victim. Your ex looked at Tay and was like, and you know, Gabs is out here promoting her and like championing her. And Tay looked at him and said, dude, what you did was diabolical. And that's a heavy word. And Tay's a very scary man when he's very intense. And he said, Gabrielle protects women from people like you. And when he relayed that conversation to me, it was like, that's the final. I was like, yeah, I do. And this isn't okay. I don't care how much I cared about this person, how much he has made me believe that he's like on this epic healing journey to change.
And I think it was the nail in the coffin for you that I saw was when I started sharing with you like the body shaming stuff.
Yeah.
And how like I would be stood in front of a mirror and he'd be like, all right, we're going to tighten you up here. But that was so normal to me. Right. And you know, it was disguised as, well, I just want a healthy partner, but like it really chipped away at my self-esteem.
Yeah. You've never not been healthy.
No.
And like, even regardless, like that's just not something you do. No. And that's what I'm saying. It was so long stemming of like, this is in this person's DNA. Like this is who they are. Mm-hmm. And so I went and I had this really long conversation with him and was like, look, dude, I just can't support what I'm hearing you've done. And I said exact sentences. I told him the picture analogy, which of course I like asked you if like that was okay that I relay. And he didn't deny any of it.
Which picture analogy?
Like when you wanted to post the picture from vacation. Right. And he was like, oh, it's not really that flattering. And here's your cellulite and blah, blah, blah.
Because he knew that it was all true when you were telling him these things.
He didn't deny any of it. And, you know, got to give him credit for the fact that he like really, I mean, I was fucking intense and not forgiving. And he sat there and took it. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying like, I wish that show wasn't about you. I'm getting emotional. This is ridiculous. I remember saying, I wish that show wasn't about you. I wish it was about some other asshole that I didn't know, but it is about you. And it's all fucking true. And the way that you approached me when you told me about all of this was gaslighting me because you knew what I had been through. So you poked at just the right spots for me to feel sorry for you and want to try and save you. Mm-hmm. And I was like, and it's not it. Mm-hmm. And that I knew leaving that conversation that was going to be the last of it. Mm-hmm. I don't wish anything bad on that person. But watching you go through what you've been through, like there's just no fucking excuse.
Yeah. And again, I didn't even know that the first step to like recovering from narcissistic abuse is to go no contact. I almost instinctively went no contact back in May. So like by the time I did the show in August, I hadn't talked to them in a long time, but they were still running my life emotionally.
Yeah.
And still do very many days, you know, and that's when I started to read up on NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, and how it develops, and also like what recovering from narcissistic abuse looks like, and complex PTSD. My jaw was on the floor because it was like I was trying to make sense of what I was experiencing and was like, this isn't a normal breakup. Mm-hmm. And the first step in recovery is going no contact. Yeah. And it's like, I did that anyway. So I felt like I was kind of ahead of the game. But then as far as my healing goes, like the past 6 months, you know, I stopped drinking, like, because I was definitely leaning on alcohol to deal with the pain, I didn't process them properly. Yeah. I also had jumped immediately into another relationship with a friend of mine, which, while wonderful, it was like I was totally
like band-aiding it.
I was totally band-aiding it. And it's like I was very upfront with that person the whole time, what I had been through. And so ultimately it wound up not working out. But like that person means so much to me. You know, I will never forget that chapter. but I was in no position to be in a relationship with anybody.
Yeah.
And so like once that ended, I cut that off in like October and ended things with this person. And then that's when like the panic attack started getting worse. And it was like I would be driving down the street and it's like zero to screaming in like 2 seconds. And it was like I couldn't catch my brain in time to be like, no, you can feel it coming on. But it's like my physiology is just unbalanced because I don't feel safe in any environment that I'm in, because my safe home where I lived with this individual was unsafe ultimately. And I didn't even know that it was happening. Yeah. And so that has been a really long road as far as controlling my emotions. And then I got on antidepressants, and that's transformed my life as far as like my generalized anxiety. I've had to dive really deep into why I ignored my gut and why I stayed with somebody like this, and accept it for what it is. And now I'm in the place where I'm like, man, do I have a lot to say? And I feel ready to share. Like being here is a really big step for me. Yeah. Personally, like I was crying in the mirror this morning being like, you are the brave little toaster. Like
you can do this.
You can do this. Like you are so brave. And I look around at now I live in this beautiful apartment that I pay for with my animals that I support. And I got rid of my car that, by the way, he was taking my car to go have sex with this girl. I sold it yesterday. Like I'm taking these big leaps to just fucking shed all this poison out of my life. And the next step is just continuing to pour this into my comedy without any fear, because I've carried so much shame about this situation where like on social media, I've been very cryptic and I've like alluded to like, I'm going through a lot and I was with an abuser and all of these things. But I'm ready to live in that power now, and I'm ready to actually move forward and sink it all into something beautiful. And I even thought about suing him. Like that crossed my mind, where I was like, you can sue somebody for emotional distress. And the panic attacks and the night terrors got so bad that it was running my life. And
I remember.
Yeah. And I was like, I have a case. I have a case here, and looking at what you can really present in court, but I don't have money for a lawyer. And also, isn't my time better spent doing something positive? Like what I want is not to prolong this abuse. Like if I were to press charges against somebody,
you'd be in hell.
Exactly. And so I've decided, I'm like, you know what? It's more powerful for me to rise above and to make comedy songs out of this absurd situation, because it really is absurd. Also, I mean, for several reasons, but one of them being, I've been doing a show about being a narcissist, but I was actually coexisting with a real one and being abused by one for 4 years. And I didn't know I was being abused.
Yeah. So now you've made this decision to make this like rather epic return to New York, and you're going to revamp the show that my favorite song and all is in.
That one's staying. That one's staying in the show.
And it's going to be even more, because now you've crossed that threshold into not being scared of what someone might think.
Exactly. I think I, again, was so in the space of protecting the other person but now through a lot of work, a lot of inner work, what does Carlie need? Yeah. What does Carlie need to do to heal from this? Because straight up, I'm not healed from this yet. I know that I'm not. It even so much so that my therapist yesterday or 2 days ago was like, you shift between talking about this situation in past and present tense, which means that you're still very much living in that space. And it's because I'm traumatized, and I acknowledge that, but how do I overcome this trauma? And for me, it's by leaning on comedy, which is what I've always done through any hardships in my life. I've always made fun of what has gone on. And the absurdity of it is just in the fact that like, who knew my Hollywood story was now going to become that I fell in love with my childhood crush and they were living a double life.
Yeah.
And I believe the whole time that we were together, you know, it's hard for me to believe that they slipped up once and then were so good in 2019. Like, I believe that him and Sarah they never cut things off. So, you know, this is just me accepting it, and also finally doing the show because I have a clear point of view.
Yeah. Yeah. I cannot tell you how fucking proud I am of you. Being here today, I know, was such a huge step. And it's so crazy to look back on, you know, a year ago when all of this happened. And I remember your ex saying, you know, one day I'll come on the podcast and I'll share my story and, you know, be able to take ownership and responsibility. And I remember being like, yeah, when you're ready, I'll help you, walk you through that. And I'm so thankful that didn't happen. And I was granted the time to become more educated and clear on the situation, and was able to give you this platform because so many people listening to this interview have gone through this, are going through this, and are going to be so fucking inspired by your story and the way that you have come out of it and are open about your mental health and how fucking hard it was to get to where you're at now, and that you're still a work in progress.
Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely, I appreciate you, and I love you so much. And I'm definitely very much acknowledging that I am still healing, and it has taken me a while to accept the fact that it's going to take me a long time to heal from this, because it was 4 years of my life. But what I can control is how I react to a situation like this. And up until this point, I've been very mum and very like reserved about it and have shared just enough. But what I really want to do moving forward is operate from a place of strength, and to know that, you know, any empathetic person, I am 1,000% an empath through and through, is susceptible to something like this. And if there is somebody listening out there that if my story resonates with you, just know that it is a long road and it's very difficult, but you have to lean on your friends and your family, because those are the people that know you best and will help you get back to the version of you that you lost.
Yeah.
Because that's what I've done. I've turned, I mean, I have the most amazing group of friends, and like nobody has batted an eye any step of this process. Like, everyone's taken me very seriously. Anytime I've been like, I need help, I'm not okay, my brother was like, I will get on a plane tomorrow. You tell me anything you need. Because this person had everyone fooled. So they know the depth of like how devastated I am. And especially now realizing the abuse that I survived, and acknowledging also that I am a survivor.
Yeah.
Because there were some dark days where I didn't think I was going to make it, where I was like, I could drive my car off this highway and that would be easier than this, you know?
Yeah. And it's such a good example that abuse is not only physical, and it's just as intense to go through it and overcome it and survive it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So thank you for having me.
You're so beyond welcome, dude. Can you please tell everyone, because there's shows coming up in Los Angeles, there's shows coming up in New York. If you've ever listened to me and taken my advice about anything, if you are close enough or can figure out a way to get to one of these cities, go see this fucking show. I'm not just saying it because I'm your friend and I love you. Like, genuinely the funniest, most fun night that we had that year.
Which is ironic because it's from such a dark place.
Yeah,
but that's the best comedy, you know, that's art. My LA dates are going to be sometime in May or June. And follow me on TikTok because I share
all the things so people can stalk you.
Carlie Craig official on TikTok. That's CarlieCraig official. And Carlie Craig on Instagram. But I'm sharing videos from my last show, which is the one in the blue dress. And, you know, a lot of those have picked up traction. So you can, if you're curious about and all the good times, you can go back and check that out on my TikTok.
I fucking love you so much.
I love you, babe.
I'm so fucking proud of you.
I did it.
Yeah, you fucking did.
I did it. And
Yeah,
I
girl.
am proud of me. Yeah, it wasn't loud, but you know,
okay.
you get the idea.
Okay.
We'll edit it in later.
We did a clap.
We did a high five.
Love you.
I love you.
I really cannot put into words how proud I am of Carlie Craig. Not only for coming on and so vulnerably and so openly sharing what she went through, which I know was hard for her. I know how nervous she was. And it really was so inspirational to me to watch this journey unfold and see her at her lowest and see where she's at today and see this incredible fucking musical that has come of it. You guys, I normally suggest that you go follow someone and check out their stuff. I am begging you to go follow Carlie Craig on all of her platforms. I am begging you to buy tickets to this fucking show. If you are in LA, if you are in New York, keep an eye on both of our pages because I will post the ticket links when they're available. This was one of the most fun nights I've ever had out when we went to her show. You will laugh your fucking ass off. It's a healing journey in itself. This individual is going to be such a massive star one day. And I am so fucking honored to call her my friend and to have her on this show. Just a million times thank you, Carlie Craig. I am so fucking inspired and proud. As always, make sure you guys are subscribed so you never miss an episode. Keep up with us on Instagram at FML Talk Podcast. Get ready for that new merch drop. It is on the way and the styles are ridiculously amazing. I cannot wait for you guys to see them. And remember, if you guys want to watch the episodes live in studio, you can do so at youtube.com/FML Talk. As always, have a self-love cocktail on me because you fucking deserve it. Love you guys. Cheers.